This world is unfair. The truth makes you grow and grow. The only thing that is fair in this world is the law of gravity and the law on taxes. One day, the main character realized that he had a unique ability. His eyes could see the amount of unpaid taxes. Some people have money to buy drinks and cars but not pay taxes, while ordinary people's taxes go up and their wages don't. The guy didn't know how he got this ability, but since he had it, he would definitely catch and destroy these bastards and put them in jail. Jae-hyun sat for the first written exam of the National Tax Service, the Level 7 Civil Service exam. Looking over the tasks, he thought that there was nothing to do here. Everything was easy. The observer told people to keep their hands on the table, because from now on, if someone moves the pen, it will be considered cheating. A couple of hours later, Jae-hyun left the building where the exam was taking place and picked up his phone. He couldn't understand who was causing him so many missed calls. After unlocking his phone, he read a message from the emergency department of Seoul Central Hospital, informing him that Mrs. Lee Myung-ja had been taken to the hospital's emergency department. After reading this, Jae-hyun broke into a run. He couldn't believe that his mother was in an ambulance. When he got to the hospital, the sun was already setting, and he was told that the treatment would cost 675,000 won. The girl at the counter asked him how long he wanted to pay for. Jae-hyun told her to say 6 months. Looking at the hospital bill, the guy thought that he wouldn't be able to earn that much. He couldn't understand what to do now. Walking up to his mother, he told her that he had already paid the bill and they could go. Mangja asked him how much it cost, to which he told her not to worry. It was only 200 to 300,000. Jae-hyun walked his mother home, taking the unpaid bills from the drawer, and the woman asked her son how his exams went. Entering the apartment, the guy replied that everything was fine. Mangja asked him whether he had been accepted or not, to which the son replied that he would get in no matter what, because he had a pretty high score. While unpacking things from the bag, the woman told him not to talk about himself like that then, because she was proud of him. While sorting through papers, Jae-hyun replied that the interview would still take time. He opened a letter from the health insurance company and read that his mother was being excluded from health insurance coverage because they had not paid her more than 6 times, which meant that the full amount of treatment would have to be paid starting next month. Jae-hyun thought that this meant that there would be no more medicine coming, and his mother needed to take it regularly. He sighed and thought about how he needed to pay for insurance at least for his mother. The woman asked her son what he had there. Jae-hyun quickly put the papers behind his back, saying that they were just bills. Noticing something suspicious, Mangja snatched the bills from her son's hands to look at them, while the boy tried to convince her that everything was fine. The woman interrupted her son by looking at the bills. She sighed and said that she would think about how to pay for it. There was no need for him to worry. The guy asked her how she would pay the bills if she was still dependent on medication and couldn't even think about working. He told her that he would get a job himself, but Mangja screamed, asking him if he was crazy. The guy replied that he understood their situation perfectly well and could not close his eyes to it. The woman replied that he had worked so hard to become a civil servant. Isn't that what's important now? Jae-hyun exclaimed that she was important, to which the woman replied that she already felt guilty and she would no longer hold her son back, no matter what he did. She said that she was still healthy, so he didn't need to worry about her. He needed to prepare for the interview. While Jae-hyun thought angrily that it was all about the damn money, Jae-hyun walked outside. He took out his phone. He knew he had promised his mom to get ready, but he couldn't bring himself to do so. He made the call. He never thought he would call that number again. Call his brother who abandoned his family again, but there was no other choice. The first words his brother said to Jae-hyun were that he had already told him not to call him. Jae-hyun said into the phone that his mother was very sick, to which the man replied that he was in a meeting. So he hung up. The boy told his brother that this time it was serious, to which he replied that the old woman had been sick more than once. So was she really going to die soon? His brother told him to tell him the date of the funeral. An irritated Jae-hyun yelled into the phone. Woo-hyun asked him why he was whining if she wasn't dead yet. The guy shouted, asking him if he didn't have any regrets. Woo-hyun answered him, saying that if he was such a mama's boy, then he should take care of her himself. He asked his younger brother, "What do you want from me? Are you begging me to help?" He said that it was too boring if he used this old woman as an excuse to ask for help. Jae-hyun called his brother by his full name again, and he told him to call him that from now on, since she was a stranger and he had neither money nor responsibilities to satisfy his needs. He said that it was obvious that if he helped now, he would ask again, and he told him not to call again. Jae-hyun tried to say something, but his brother had already hung up. Hearing the call drop, Jae-hyun cursed loudly. The sun was setting, people were happily strolling in the park, and Jae-hyun was reviewing his material. He said that clarity is what makes people believe in a country. Everyone was busy chatting and having fun, and Jaehyun kept repeating it non-stop, stopping at the question about difficulties. It was already night. Jaehyun was still repeating the questions from the interview as he walked along the bridge. Clutching a can of beer, he said it was a stroke of luck to get what would be a last-chance interview, but not be able to attend because of his sick mother. He asked what difficulties they were talking about. Whether they were talking about how someone could have a stupid son who couldn't even buy medicine. Stopping on the bridge, the guy screamed that he could just die. Throwing his bag off his shoulders, he thought that he wanted to live like others, but he couldn't. The glasses fell to the ground, breaking, and Jaehyun thought about how when people around him were having fun, he should lock himself into study. When people were having fun again, he should get a job and earn money. He realized that once you become poor, you will always remain poor. Climbing over the railing, he said that he was trying for some unknown reason. Everything would fall into place if he died. He climbed over the fence and stood looking at the river below. But still, Jaehyun got scared and climbed back, thinking that he was the most cowardly person in the world. At least he believed that if he worked hard, everything in his life would become better than it was now. However, now the only thought that was going through his head was that it was all useless. Standing up, Jaehyun picked up his textbook to throw it away. But suddenly someone stopped him, saying that for someone who wants to become a civil servant, it is not worth polluting the river. Jaehyun felt a strong grip on his wrist. The man asked him about why someone who passed the written exam would give up. He invited the guy to listen to his story. Turning around, Jaehyun asked the man who he was to stick his nose where it didn't belong and told him to go on his way, to which he replied that he should just calm down and pay a little attention to the passerby. He picked up the book and said that looking at the book, you can tell he understands taxes and he feels like he is giving up halfway through. The man handed him a book, and Jaehyun took it and said that he wasn't giving up yet. The stranger told him to throw away that childishness. The guy's gaze caught on the luxurious watch, and he couldn't understand where this man came from. The stranger said that it must be fate. He asked him to tell him what he was so upset about. Jaehyun couldn't understand why such a wealthy man decided to interfere. He looked at him with his appraising eyes, deciding that he was definitely a man who was stealing money. But, to the guy's surprise, there were no numbers above the stranger's head. The man told the boy that if he didn't want to talk, he would just leave. Finally, the guy exclaimed that he was doing everything to survive, but his shitty life was only getting worse. The man interrupted him, calmly asking what happened to him. Jaehyun threw his head back, trying not to burst into tears, and said that he just wanted to live like everyone else, but he spent his 20th birthday working like a dog, all for the sake of ending it. He played when he wanted, did what he wanted, even when it was difficult. He wanted the good life he had worked so hard for. The man asked him if he wanted to say that the world was cruel to him, and said that if it was, then he was a little disappointed. Jaehyun said that it wasn't quite like that, but there was still something in this unfair world. Was it really such a sin to turn in some bastard who was stealing money? The part about stealing money caught the stranger's attention. Jaehyun burst into tears and said that even if his life wasn't as good as others, he wanted to live an honest life without hiding from shame. But he was fired after he reported the manager of the detector stealing all the money. He cried out, asking if there was justice in this world. The man asked the boy if this was why he was preparing for the civil service exam. Clutching the textbook with a shaking hand, the boy replied that this was his last chance, because he wanted to hold his head high in front of them, despite the fact that he had nothing. The stranger said that this was absurd. Did he really think that the problem would be solved if he punished them? Closing his eyes, he said that he wanted to ask him one question. Taking a wallet out of his jacket, he told him to assume that he would actually become a civil servant. And here he was again catching a high-ranking official in corruption and tax evasion. If you close your eyes to this, everything will go smoothly. But if not, then everything will be about the same as when he was fired from his job this time. The man asked him what he would do now. Jaehyun replied that there is a saying, the sword has no eyes. He said that he would naturally report them, no matter who they were. Hearing the guy, the stranger took a business card out of his wallet. Closing his wallet, he thought with a smile that he had come across an interesting young man. He told the guy that he needed a better perspective. The man thought that things could be interesting if he really became a sword without eyes. The stranger took out a notepad and pen, saying that he was just wondering what he would become when they saw each other again, when he would overcome his current difficulties. And in his mind he continued, thinking about whether he would become a great man, that he kept his word. Tearing out the sheet of paper with the phone number, he said he would introduce him to the tax accountant, so he should train his eyes. The guy took the piece of paper, and the man told him that it was his phone number. He could call him when he needed help, but he would only help him once. Looking at the number, the guy asked why he gave it to him, why he was helping him. The stranger replied that he wanted to give him the opportunity to change the world. The man went to get into the car. Jaehyun bowed to him, saying that he would definitely repay his kindness, to which the man replied that he did not need anything. He was doing it out of good intentions. Jaehyun said that this might sound harsh, but is this some kind of pyramid scheme or human trafficking? The man laughed when he heard this, and the boy apologized again. As he got into the car, the stranger said it was okay. He encouraged this caution, and he told him it was up to him whether he would take advantage of this opportunity or not. But the main thing is that he remembers what he said. After he becomes a civil servant, he will help him only once. And soon the stranger's car drove away. Sitting in the car, the man thought that the sword has no eyes. It means doing everything honestly, but since he has no eyes, it means he can hurt himself. He thought that they would meet him when he realized this. The next 2 months passed quickly. Jaehyun attended lectures in the morning. During the day, he worked in the office that was provided to him. He was performing a simple task, typing by hand so he could listen to his surroundings. When documents were printed, when coffee was brewed, he could hear every little detail. And finally, it was time for the interview, where he was asked the final question, what kind of civil servant he wanted to be. Jaehyun confidently replied that he wanted to protect honest taxpayers and make those who don't pay their taxes pay their bills. Another evening, Mengza returned home, asking her son if she hadn't told him to throw out the milk. Turning to his mother, Jaehyun told her with tears in his eyes that he had become a civil servant. The woman exclaimed joyfully that it was worth praying for. His father would be proud of him. The guy told her that she was the only one who did a great job. Thanks to his good grades at the training center, Jaehyun was accepted into the Seoul Byumsan tax office. In those days, the boy felt like someone was looking at him. All this time, he was thinking about the gentleman he met on the bridge that day. He mentally addressed him, telling him to watch how he caught the top of those panties. South Korea is a country with a bright future, so they say, but minors have increased the national rental income. Groups of elementary, middle, and high school students make money by getting into real estate. However, all this is a lie. In reality, all this is the work of their parents. Looking through the papers, Jaehyun thought that the CEO couldn't be 12 years old. These were definitely parents using their child. This did not mean that they became elementary school students for the second time, and moreover, the figures of unpaid taxes were reflected in the guy's eyes. One day, the lunch break in one of the offices came to an end. The head of the department clapped his hands joyfully, calling on everyone to return to work. Sitting down at the table, he began to look for his nail clippers. Jaehyun appeared next to his boss like a shadow, saying that he had something to show him. The man cried out in surprise. The guy told him that the owner of the shopping mall with an annual income of 108 million won was a 12-year-old boy. And the boss asked him without any emotion what the matter was. The guy said that the income share is 30%, which is equal to an expense of 65 million won. He asked if he could go there for a tax audit. The boss asked the guy how he knew there was tax evasion there. Jaehyun repeated once again that the owner of the shopping mall was a 12-year-old boy. The irritated man reached out his hand to take the documents. The guy asked his boss if he didn't find it strange. Quickly leafing through the documents, as if not looking at them, the man asked if he was really going to check him. Shoving the folder into the guy's chest, he told him to leave it as is and not to think about checking. Jaehyun tried to object, saying that the owner was a minor. Therefore, there was a possibility that it was a profitable inheritance. But the boss interrupted the guy again, telling him to leave it as is. He said that it was none of their business anyway. The property tax department was handling it. The guy tried to object again. Then the man asked him how long ago he had joined. A month or two ago. How could he even know how to read financial statements correctly? He asked him how he could know this. The guy had no choice but to go to his desk when his colleague approached him. She, noticing his bad mood, asked him about it because of Lim. Is this Sunsana? She said that she did not recommend him to get involved in this matter. Everyone has known for a long time. These people personally know the boss and manager. Putting her hand on the boy's shoulder, she said that he had worked so hard to get here, he should be very careful. The manager is planning to resign anyway. But then Jaehyun remembered the words of his previous boss, who mockingly told him that he was about to break. The guy's jaw muscles flexed as he said that this was not why he became a civil servant. He started shouting, asking why they were robbing defenseless people. The woman tried to calm the guy down, but he continued, asking what kind of chaos this was, when there were those who could and those who couldn't. Everyone else in the office started whispering when they heard his words. Jaehyun asked if he said something wrong. The boss, as if he had broken loose from his chain, began to shout at the guy that he didn't understand anything, that the milk on his lips was still wet. He shouted at him that if he continued in the same spirit, he would be thrown out of here immediately. The colleague told the guy to quickly say that he was wrong. Jae-hyun turned around and walked away while his boss yelled at him that he couldn't make a fuss here, and he wasn't the only civil servant they had, so he should know his place. Breathing heavily with anger, Jae-hyun walked to the toilet and locked himself in there. He thought that this was all complete nonsense. He couldn't believe that such civil servants existed. Trying to calm down, he dialed one number. The words of that gentleman immediately ran through his head about how he would help him only once. A voice came through the phone saying that he had called him faster than expected. Jae-hyun asked him what he could do to help him. The man told him to tell him what he was interested in, and he would do his best. Then the guy told him that there was one owner of a building that was 12 years old. The real owner is Lim Jung-hak, and it seems like the head of the income tax department and the main boss are covering for him. The man asked him what he wants to do. The guy replied that he would like to catch those who evade taxes, and those who were bribed, and everyone involved. The gentleman interrupted the guy, repeating to him that he would help him only once. He asked him if he really wanted it. Jae-hyun gritted his teeth and replied that this was exactly what he wanted, asking if he was able to remain so calm, that he was so confident in his words. The man laughed quietly as the boy talked about how he would destroy all the assholes, coming there to catch these idiots. Finally, the man burst out laughing, saying he couldn't believe he was hearing those words. He told him to do whatever he wanted from now on. No one would stop him now. Reaching his desk, he dialed the tax accountant's number. Sometime later, the boss shouted at the guy asking if he had dialed the tax accountant, because no one else could do it. The guy calmly replied that it was him. The man came closer, shaking with anger as he asked again. Still unperturbed, Jae-hyun told him not to bother him. He was working. The man's neck became stiff with anger, and one of the workers immediately ran to him, shouting at the guy to immediately apologize to the boss. But then someone shouted, asking what he was doing there. Lunch had long since ended. Hearing the manager's familiar voice, the boss turned around in fear. As it turned out, it was the Director General of the Tax Inspectorate, Hae Sung-won. The director told the man to spare him his greetings and go back to work. Standing next to the director was manager Kim Kae-hyun, who exclaimed that he knew this would happen sooner or later. The director asked the boss if he thought he heard some swearing. The man immediately bowed, saying that he really did imagine it. The director told the man that he would like to see him in his office. But suddenly he said that he also wanted to see the manager. Looking at Jae-hyun's back, he asked, "Is this the same senior officer, Shin Jae-hyun?" The guy turned around and told the CEO that that was it. The man asked the boy if he would allow him to retire with peace of mind. The other workers immediately began to talk among themselves, not understanding what was happening or what he was even talking about. Jae-hyun told him that if it didn't bother him, then there wouldn't be any problems. The boss tried to ask the CEO what was going on, but he just told the guy that it wasn't easy. Looking back at the manager and the chief, he said that at least he didn't live like those two, and those two simultaneously asked him what that meant. He told them to follow him, visibly nervous, the two men already starting to make excuses. Seung-won looked at them sternly and asked them if he had said something they didn't understand. The man turned and walked away, the boss and manager following him, still not understanding what was happening. The workers watched them go in silence. Jae-hyun, on the other hand, stretched in his chair as if none of this mattered to him while his colleagues wondered who he even was. A man was walking down the corridor, thinking that some new guy had caused trouble again. As he walked towards the office of the head of the income tax department, he thought that he had been working as a tax accountant for 20 years, so this was normal. The tax accountant opened the door, happily greeting his boss and manager. Noticing their sour faces, he asked them what had happened. He asked with concern whether this was really an audit of the Rational Tax Administration. The boss and manager replied that it was much more serious. Then the accountant told them to tell him more. After listening to the story, the man began to wipe his mouth with a handkerchief. He asked how this could have happened because of some newbie from the 7th grade. The manager, clutching his coffee glass, said there was someone standing over him. The boss said if they only knew who. They said it would be passed on to the prosecutor, causing the accountant to also squeeze his coffee cup, splashing it all over his face. He asked why this was all so sudden. The manager said that the director had just called him directly and told him to let the new guy do whatever he wanted. The accountant asked if there was a different way to do it, to which the manager, clutching his head, said that there was no way, he had no authority. This is an order from the main office. The man began to wipe his face with a handkerchief in fear. The accountant read the papers and his face became as sour as those two. Jae-hyun said that he checked everything thoroughly and thought that they would not do anything more here. He said that meant they had to finish all the shipments already. Jae-hyun asked the accountant if there was anything else he wanted to say, to which he replied with a muffled no, and the boy thanked him for his assistance. Wiping away the sweat, the accountant went to the door, asking with a forced smile if that was all. The guy told him that that was all, and then the man walked away, quietly saying goodbye. As the night approached, Jae-hyun finished preparing for the tax inspection, and now that he would catch the first taxpayer, he thought that there was actually no interference. Looking at his watch, which showed it was already 9 o'clock, he thought that he was terribly tired. Jae-hyun's mind flashed back to his previous boss's face with his mocking grin. As he went outside, he thought that today had gone well, but he didn't know whether it would be the same tomorrow. There was only one car in the parking lot, and someone from it called out to the young man from the Han River. Coming closer, Jae-hyun recognized that same gentleman, and he told him to sit down because he had not had dinner yet. The car started moving, and Jae-hyun asked the man why he decided to visit him, to which he said that he wanted to surprise him a little. He said he had a lot to do, but he found time to visit him. The guy asked him why he needed it and where they were going. The man laughed and said that he had helped him twice already, so he might as well just trust him again. As it turned out, they arrived at a restaurant where there were already many dishes on the table. The mister told him to enjoy his food because he had worked hard. Jae-hyun immediately picked up his chopsticks, thanking for the food. The boy began to happily chew these expensive dishes, and the man told him that while he was eating he should listen. Pouring himself some alcohol, the man said that the principle of the person he works for is, if you give a person a force that they cannot handle, you will see their true essence. He told the boy that he could wish for wealth and fame. However, he only wanted to do what he had to do. Jae-hyun modestly replied that there is no such thing as a free lunch. There is nothing free in the world. The man laughed and remarked that he was so careful, but he contacted him so quickly. Taking his bowl in his hands, Jae-hyun responded to the man that he knew he was an unusual person, and the fact that he helped him so suddenly means that he has to prove himself. And it happened just at the moment when he needed this help so much. Putting the bowl on the table, the gentleman said that he had a hidden ability to see good people. He introduced himself by saying that his name was Lee Sung-kyun and that he was a tax manager at Samsung. Jae-hyun was surprised that he was with someone from Samsung's tax office. After all, it was an elite course in Seocho, Yeoksum, Barrier, and Gangnam. Suddenly, the door quietly swung open and Song-hyun greeted the director. Jae-hyun thought that there was no director position in the tax office directorate. The guy jumped up to say hello too, but he was thinking that this man was either up to the level of a local governor or the head of the entire department. The director laughed and sat down at the table, telling the guy to relax, and he asked if this was the same new guy that his bosses had been making excuses for to the director. Jae-hyun winced, wondering if this was a trap, and quietly introduced himself. Song-hyun walked away, leaving the director and the guy alone. The man at the table waved his hand at him, and then the director asked the guy to sit down. They looked at each other in silence for a while, Jae-hyun thinking that he didn't know what to do now. Finally, the man raised his cup and asked the boy to pour him some. A little taken aback by this, the guy nevertheless took hold of the jug with both hands. When the bowl was full, the director said he would get down to business. He asked the boy if he would become the Sword of Justice. The man introduced himself as Min Chi-ho, Director General of the National Tax Service, adding that this did not mean he had to listen to him. Jae-hyun asked if there was another way out. Poking the boy in the face with chopsticks, Chi-ho told him that he was saying that he should do whatever he wanted. Adjusting his glasses, Jae-hyun asked him how he knew him. The man did not answer this question but said that he knew that he wanted to punish people who evaded taxes. Turning his bowl upside down, he said that he could help him catch such people. The guy noted that it was all short and clear, and asked out loud what would happen if he came across it during the investigation, and poured the director some more alcohol. Taking a new portion of alcohol, the man grinned and said that nothing could be done about it. He told him that if he didn't like it, he could refuse the offer. Without thinking for long, Jae-hyun filled his bowl and brought it closer, saying that he agreed. He said that he agreed because he sincerely wanted it. Then the director told him to stay in Bomson, and then he would come to them next year when they had a vacancy. Jae-hyun thought after the meeting that this was his chance to really get rid of people who don't pay taxes. The next day, Jae-hyun came to work as usual. His colleagues were surprised that he came, and some whispered that he had completely lost his conscience. Feeling the weight of these glances, the guy simply greeted everyone. He couldn't understand how he managed to become an outcast at the age of 20. However, the guy didn't care much about this, and he got down to work as if nothing had happened. Looking at the computer, he again remembered his meeting with the Samsung tax manager and the general director of the National Tax Service, acquaintances that no civil servant can imagine. But this does not mean that everything will change. Jae-hyun approached the guy's table and called out to the guy. Jae-hyun greeted the man, who asked him how he dared to come here. When the guy asked again, the manager slammed his hands on the wall and shouted, asking him why he came. Jaehyun asked, confused, what was wrong? Suddenly, the property tax manager Ham Seonho appeared. He told the other manager not to disgrace Byomsun and asked him why he was pestering him. Kaehyun irritably told the man to get away from there. Seonho pointed his finger at Kaehyun and said that because of him, they were criticized, and he still dared to shout. As he led the man away, he waved at Jaehyun and told Kyohyun to stop going crazy. When the manager left, Sungho asked if the new guy Shin Jaehyun was there. When the guy said he was, the man asked him to give him more of his time. Getting up from his chair, the guy asked him if he wanted to tell him something, to which the man replied that they could go to the break room. Once they reached the break room, Seonho handed the guy a grape lollipop, saying it was his favorite. After accepting the lollipop, Jaehyun quietly thanked him, and the man said that he didn't like it when the atmosphere became tense. After opening his lollipop, he told the guy that he heard that he wanted to give something to their department. Jaehyun also opened his lollipop and said that he wanted to hand over the charges of tax evasion by the shopping mall to Im Seong, the president, who is 12 years old and an elementary school student. He said that according to the financial reports, the building and land are worth 1.5 billion won, so it's certainly not her money. Sonyo then asked who gave her the building and land as a gift, whether they made money from it. The guy answered that this was the case. The manager put his hand in his pocket and told the guy to look at this. Taking out a piece of paper, he said it was Imsun's financial report. Jaehyun looked at the paper and noticed that the total debt was 1.4 billion and another 1.3 billion was borrowed. He asked if they borrowed 1.3 billion and bought the building and land, adding 200 million initially, and Seonho said that was the case. Then the guy noticed that the source of the funds was clear. Wondering if he was missing out on something, Jaehyun hesitantly asked if it was his parents' money. Seonho replied that it was the bank's money and told him to think about it some more. After thinking for a while, Jaehyun realized that it was collateral. Then, she took out a loan from the bank for her parents' shopping mall as collateral and bought it from her parents again. The manager happily announced that he was now right. Jaehyun bit into his lollipop in irritation, noticing that these were some tricks. In a fit of righteous rage, he said he must now pay for tax evasion. Seonho stopped him, asking if he had heard anything about gifting with a burden. The guy replied that he knew, and he thought that if he just gave 1.5 billion, then a gift appears along with a gift tax. Paying high gift taxes becomes quite burdensome for the recipient. However, the gift of a burden is different from a loan from a bank. For example, I'll give you a shopping center if you pay off the loan. If you do that, he'll hand over the building and the tax will be dramatically reduced. Jaehyun said sadly that it wasn't illegal. Seonho laughed, patting the guy on the back. He told him not to worry. He said he knew a way to solve it, but he wouldn't tell him that easily. After a while, Seonho muttered that this was indeed a special occasion, but he wouldn't be able to get everything for free. Noticing Jaehyun, he called him over. He wondered why this guy was so proud and relaxed. His gait alone was worth something. They got into the car. The manager asked if they could tax them. Jaehyun replied that he thought so. He said the main problem is that a parent pays as little tax as possible and then passes the property on to their children. According to the report, they must return 1.3 billion won to the bank. Sonyo asked him who exactly should return the money. The guy answered that the child, but in fact the parent, but they will listen to who will pay for it. The man said that was great and asked what next. A little embarrassed, Jaehyun didn't know what to say next. Meanwhile, the car stopped in the parking lot, and Seonho announced that they had arrived. Getting out of the car, Jaehyun looked around the Imseong building. The man handed him the underage president's bank account. After looking at the papers, the guy said that they looked good. Everything was very neat. To which the man said that usually the tax accountant was responsible for this. And then he pulled out another stack of papers, saying that this was already a real savings book. Sungho shook the envelope and Jaehyun asked if it was a tax notice, to which he replied that it was, and they had evidence to prove it. Opening the doors, Jaehyun loudly said that they were from the Byomsun tax office, and they were here because they had not paid their taxes. In the office sat manager Kim Kae-hyun, the boss, and Lim himself, Seong-san, who choked on coffee. The guy casually asked his manager and boss what they were doing there, the boss yelled, asking the guy how he could talk to his boss like that, to which the guy replied that he could afford it. Seonho told the man to go command somewhere else, and Jaehyun told the criminals posing as government officials to leave and let him sit down. The boss immediately jumped up at night, clenching his fist, and he said that he would kill him. The manager tried to stop him. Sitting next to Lim Sansan, the boss asked what this child was doing here. The man asked the same thing with a grin. Sitting down opposite, Seono said that this was not a child, but a cutie from their tax office. Songsan told the boy to think carefully about what he was doing. The guy answered him that he would decide for himself what to do. He put a folder on the table and told the president to look at this first. But the man folded his arms across his chest and said he wouldn't take it. Jaehyun chuckled and said that he would have to give it to Lim Ye-ji then, since she had already finished her lessons. Seong-san, taken in by this, grabbed the folder, asking why this lunatic remembered his daughter. After looking at the papers, the man became even more angry and started shouting, asking why he owed 500 million, to which the guy asked if it was that much. And he himself thought that the actual amount of unpaid taxes was 1.1 billion. The man said that this was not a gift of property but a transfer, and he had already paid taxes on it. Jaehyun countered by saying that if it was a transfer, he would have received the money, but he transferred the debt and the building. Smiling as if attacking, Seong-san said his daughter pays with the money she earns from running the mall. The guy asked him if he was the one paying for it. The man asked him if there was any evidence. Jaehyun thought that there was no way to back out, and he said that he saw the business account. The man asked him what the problem was with that. The guy looked at the papers and said that exactly the amount of repayment indicated in the financial literacy was withdrawn from the accounts. Kyehyun chimed in and said that if you pay off 1.3 billion won over 30 years, it will be 42 million every year, and the mall's annual income will be 108 million, and the net profit will be 56, which seems quite normal. Jaehyun glanced behind the man, wondering if he was an official or a tax agent. However, the guy was not finished yet. He put the papers on the table, saying that this is why he brought it. The men looked at the papers, a little puzzled. Jaehyun simply said that this was his daughter's second bank book. He asked the man if he was able to pay off his debts and use his daughter's pocket money as his annual salary, since that was where he put his money. As if pointing a blade at the man, he said that they already knew everything, and now they were just giving him time to explain. The boss knocked the papers out of the president's hands, asking him why he had done so without consulting them. And then he said that he could not help him now. Seung-ho smiled and praised Jaehyun. Songsan grabbed the man by the collar and said that he helped his son get out of the army, so he should help, and Jaehyun and Seung-ho decided to continue. The guy told the man that he hadn't explained anything yet, and since the tax base was clear, they could proceed with the taxation. As if cutting the enemy into pieces, Jaehyun demanded that the man quickly and honestly pay the tax. But then Seong-san smiled and, taking the phone, asked the guy if he really thought he had already won. He dialed some number and said that they would still see who would win. Laughing stupidly, the man asked his interlocutor how Manager Kai was doing. The chief said with a happy smile that the post was Key's boss, then Bomson would be sent to the police station. Songsan asked the other person if he was close with Manager Kim and Manager Park. Leaning back on the sofa, he said he was having problems here. But then the man's expression changed and became filled with anxiety. He quietly said that he had called the wrong number. Manager Kim and Chef Park looked at each other, not understanding what was going on. Meanwhile, a message arrived on Jaehyun's phone. It turned out to be Lee Sung-yoon's manager, who said that the prosecutor's office would be visiting the Byomson tax office that afternoon. Jaehyun smiled victoriously and thought that he liked this feeling. Seono told the guy that he thought they could continue. Song-san couldn't get through to anyone who could help him. Jaehyun again told the man to make his daughter pay the tax quickly. Suddenly, the man handed the guy an envelope. He said that these 5 billion were from the bottom of his heart. When the boy took the envelope, the man thought that if he gave him some money, everything would end. But suddenly the guy tore the envelope. Song-san asked him what he was doing. Jaehyun firmly told him to take it and pay the tax. The man's eyes were shaking with fear. He couldn't believe what was happening now. The guy told him that he would soon be subject to tax monitoring and that he should be prepared to explain himself to the prosecutor's office. After such a victory, Jaehyun returned to the office and the criminal's belongings began to be put into boxes. Chief Park said that they were committing a crime for the first time, and Manager Kim shouted that no one was allowed to touch his things while the people from the prosecutor's office were putting them away. The men were sent away amidst loud screams, with one of their colleagues saying it was a complete disaster. Someone also criticized the actions of the manager and the boss, and then someone touched Jaehyun on the shoulder. It was Heo Sung-won who asked the guy if he could spare some of his time. When they reached his office, the man handed him a ginseng-flavored slander. Jaehyun thought that everyone here loved sweets, and the director praised the guy. Seono, who was also there, said that he was surprised and felt like he had been working there for 10 years. Sonwon said that they had just arrived here and were already able to grab Imson. No one had been able to do that before. Seono agreed and said that he even managed to catch 2 officials at once. The director said that there were still countless such people, and he and manager Ham made a decision. He said that together with him they would be able to clean up their work area. Jaehyun said that he is not such a great person. His father is dead and his mother is sick, so he has come this far on his own. He lived his life like this and doesn't want to see corruption anymore. Seono put his hand on his shoulder and said that this was the most important thing. He told him that he could do everything according to his abilities, but he was able to cope with such a difficult task himself. The guy can do whatever he wants, and he will make sure that no one bothers him. Jaehyun asked him if he knew how hard it would be for him. Sungwon said that he thought it was his turn to try his best, and he asked the guy which department he would like to work in. After some time, Jaehyun met a serious man. He asked him if he was that first-year student, to which the guy said that it was him. Jaehyun wondered if he could trust investigator Kim Myung-jun. Using his abilities, the boy checked to see if he had any unpaid taxes, but his head was empty. The investigator called the guy by name and asked if he had named it correctly. The guy just nodded in response. Turning around, Mengjong waved his hand at him, telling him to follow him. So the guy ended up in some office. He was standing on the left-hand side of the investigator, and on the right-hand side there was a woman. Mengjong told the girl sitting opposite that she had come here to report tax evasion. Jaehyun couldn't believe that he was immediately dragged into the investigation without even being taught anything. Mengjong told the girl that they would hide her identity, and he asked her if she agreed to record the conversation. The girl nodded in response. The man pressed the record button on the recorder and said that they could begin then. Jaehyun immediately got ready to work, thinking that this was his chance. The girl said that she thought her boss was evading taxes on his store. Mengjong asked her why she thought so. The girl said that they pay the full price with a card, and with cash, with a discount. The investigator said that this is a common occurrence. He said that if this was a personal squabble for revenge, then they might not conduct an investigation, to which the girl responded that this was not the case at all. Jaehyun thought that sometimes informants specifically ask for an investigation out of resentment. But if it was determined that the boss was actually evading taxes, then an investigation would have to be launched. Mengjong continued the interrogation by asking how many employees they had. The girl said that it was about 15, and they also weren't paid on time, although sales were quite high. The investigator asked if the boss had no money, to which the informant said that she had seen a pile of money folded in the safe. The man asked her if she had any evidence, and she replied that she had taken a photo. She took out her phone and showed a photo of a safe full of money and the boss. The investigator and his assistants looked at the photo. The woman said that she did not think that with such savings there should be a delay in salary, and Mengjong asked if she had any more photos. The girl replied that she was afraid of being caught, so that was all. Turning to the investigator, the woman quietly told him that they usually brought the ledger as evidence, and therefore she was not sure. But the man just as quietly told her that they would look into it. Mengjong thanked the girl for her cooperation. After finishing the interrogation, Jaehyun and the investigator left the office. The man asked the guy if he heard. The guy answered him that he had heard everything, but he was thinking about what they should do now. Mengjong told him that they didn't know yet whether they could go to the boss or not, and since he was the only one who knew all the information, he needed to go and ask the position about it, and he handed the guy a business card. Turning around, the investigator told the guy that this case should generally be handled by 2 people, but they didn't have any extra hands, so he would go alone. The guy couldn't believe he was sending him alone, and the man told him there was an address on the back. When he reached the store, Jaehyun couldn't stop thinking about what would happen if he made a mistake on the very first day. He entered the store and immediately heard loud shouts about promotions. A man shouted at a woman not to touch the food, even though she only wanted to look at it. One guy asked the owner why it was more expensive to pay with a card, to which the man asked him what was wrong. He shouted to him that everything was clear. If he wanted to pay more, he would pay by card. Jaehyun thought that the difference in price was actually greater than he thought. But then a woman screamed, asking the owner why the food was being sold 101 cheaper every day, since they wouldn't be able to survive for even a couple of days. The man annoyedly told her to go to another store, and Jaehyun thought that this store was so cheap that other stores had no business there. He looked at the number above the man's head, thinking that he couldn't believe his business was still going strong, even though he was selling everything so cheaply. But seeing his unpaid taxes made it all clearer. Later in the evening, having finished his investigation, the guy decided that all that was left was to come up with a plan. He sat on a bench, chewing a sandwich, and thought about what he had seen. That there was tax evasion, but there was no real evidence. He wondered what had happened to the director that had caused him to evade taxes. Suddenly the phone rang and the guy looked up to answer it. The voice on the phone asked him where he was. Jaehyun asked in confusion who it was. but they answered him by saying that he had already found him. A man rode up on a bicycle. He introduced himself to the guy, saying that he was Hwang Min-woo, the secretary of the first lunch investigation of the 8th grade. He said that the director contacted him, so he should go with him. Jae-hyun asked him if they were going to ride on this, referring to his bike. Winking, the man said that he had forgotten his car keys but would still deliver it safe and sound. Putting on his helmet, Jae-hyun sat behind the man and they drove off. Min-woo handed the boy the papers, saying that the director said that he left the financial reports. Taking the papers, the guy said that card sales amount to 100 million won per year, and cash sales amount to 3 million won. Min-woo asked him what the problem was, to which the guy replied that the store only accepted cash. The man noted that this was his first investigation, and he already understood everything perfectly well. Jae-hyun said that something was wrong with the sales. He smiled and said that, thanks to this, they would be able to catch him. Min-woo exclaimed to the guy that he must have sensed something, so they would start developing a strategy. The store owner sat in his office and counted money. He heard a knock on the door and said he could come in. A woman came into the office and said that she wanted to talk about salary. The man snapped and asked her if he hadn't given it to her last month, to which the woman replied that she had been receiving the minimum wage before that. The owner asked her if her probationary period had already ended, to which she replied positively. Suddenly, the man asked her if she had left work due to illness last month. Surprised that he had brought it up, the woman agreed. He asked her if she knew how hard it was at that moment and how much needed to be done. The woman objected, saying that at that time there was little merchandise and no buyers. The man angrily asked her if he really needed to close his business because there were no customers. The woman tried to say something else, but the owner told her that she could go. The worker tried again to say something, to which the man shouted at her, hitting the table, that she had to start working properly. Not understanding what it was, the worker walked out the door. Tears appeared in her eyes when suddenly someone asked her if her boss was there. Jae-hyun told her with a smile that the tax inspection had arrived. The labor inspector extended her hand to the woman to help her stand up. Jae-hyun, Min-woo, and the labor inspector walked into the office. Noticing them, the man asked them why they came without warning. The guy told him that if there was a risk of destruction of evidence, an investigation was possible without prior notice. The owner became angry and shouted that he was not a criminal. Jae-hyun answered him that they would look into it, but now he was from the first investigation department of the Bomsan Tax Service, asking for cooperation with the investigation. The guy started by telling the man that his labor cost was 96 million, but he didn't tell him that. The owner retorted that if he reported this, he would die, since his annual sales volume was 300 million won. Jae-hyun asked him then if he had heard anything about appropriate labor cost, and he said that you need to pay 30 to 40% of sales, and he pays 32% even if the labor cost is 300 million won. The man replied that, as he had said, there were no problems. But then the guy said that he looked at the reports on labor costs. They said 4 employees, but for such work at least 5 would be needed. He asked if he really had 4 people working for him. The man didn't answer but shouted, asking what difference it made how many people he had working for him. Jae-hyun showed him photos of the workers and told the man not to lie to him because he saw that he had at least 10 employees working for him. He said that if the sales volume is 300 million won, then the simple calculation of the labor cost is 240,000 won. And if that is correct, then that means he is in the red. So where does he get his living expenses from? The labor inspector quietly remarked that he had taken everything into account, to which Min-woo agreed and said that it was quite interesting. The guy continued by saying that he only gets 3% of the sales in cash, which comes to 9 million won, and the owner, who was already worried, asked what happened. Jae-hyun asked him if there was too much of a difference between paying by card and paying in cash. The man said that people were increasingly paying with cards, to which Min-woo said that all this could be easily checked on video cameras, and went to the computer. As if to strike another blow, Jae-hyun pointed out that yesterday he saw 1 in 10 people paying with a card. He asked if that meant that actual sales were 10 times higher. Pressed, the owner tried to say that it was actually only 2 times more. Then Jae-hyun asked him if that meant the total annual sales were 900 million. The labor inspector intervened in this fight. She said that this is not all. There are also problems with the social security of employees. As if to strike one blow after another, she said that there was no purchase of private insurance, no notification of daily employment, no execution of an employment contract, but there was a violation of the minimum wage. Jae-hyun intervened again, saying that the cost of the work had not been paid and there were no pension payments. He told him that it wouldn't end until he paid off the overdue money. And with these words, the guy seemed to have dealt the final blow. It was already evening. The sun began to set behind the horizon. Min-woo had already returned to the office, and his colleague asked him if the newbie had actually gotten into the investigation department in his first year. Another man asked Min-woo how he liked the guy. Min-woo said he didn't even know how to answer. But then his answer was interrupted by the fact that Jae-hyun had arrived. The colleagues immediately pounced on the guy, asking if he had sorted out the matter with that store and how he had come to the investigative department. The guy replied that he came here after dealing with the head of the income tax department and the department head. His colleagues asked him if it was really him who dealt with those psychos, to which Jae-hyun nodded uncertainly. The woman said it was a good job. Because they had said so many bad words about government officials, the man asked him if there would be any reward for this. Taking a card out of his pocket, the guy replied that the head of the department wanted to hold a corporate party or something like that. The colleagues immediately shouted happily. Jae-hyun told them to take something that wasn't too expensive. Arriving at the restaurant after work, all colleagues raised their glasses to the Bompson Investigations Department. Everyone sat happily at the table and ate delicious food. Someone asked where this new guy came from and noted that they hadn't had one like him for a long time, and the guy quietly laughed. The woman asked Jae-hyun how he liked the investigation department. Chewing the meat, the boy began to answer that he didn't understand yet. But Min-woo answered instead, saying that everything wasn't that bad. Meanwhile, a man in a suit entered the restaurant. Approaching the cashier, he asked her how much it was for that corporate table, to which the woman replied that it was only 460,000 won. Jae-hyun immediately noticed that someone was paying, and Min-woo quickly turned his attention there. Other colleagues immediately rushed to the man, asking him what he was doing. Taking an envelope with money out of his jacket, the man said that if he paid with a card, then there would be a record left. Then he should pay in cash. And he was immediately asked angrily whether he really wanted them to answer under the law on improper extortion and bribery. Jae-hyun asked if this man was doing it on purpose. Min-woo said that they needed to follow him. The man awkwardly scratched his neck and introduced himself by saying that his name was Lee Bong-eun and that he was a tax accountant at the main office. His colleagues calmed down and asked him why he had behaved like that. Jae-hyun immediately recognized the man as the tax accountant who had kicked him out of the company. Jae-hyun came to work the next day. He wondered if Lee Bong-eun was still working in Tail. To the Tail Enterprise, Jae-hyun came to work on stands after the army. It is a wholesale and retail company that mainly sells kitchenware. Jae-hyun immediately remembered the days when he worked there. He quickly completed his work. I was busy carrying heavy boxes. One day, his colleague asked him if he was preparing for any exam, to which he replied that he had nothing to prepare for. Then the man said that he could help him since he had nothing to do, and extra money wouldn't hurt. This colleague brought the guy to the office and introduced him to the director. And the director turned out to be the very same person who had shamefully kicked out Jae-hyun. At first, the guy thought everything was fine, because at that moment he didn't understand how rotten everything was. Suddenly, while he was browsing through Tail's website, a financial report appeared before his eyes, the numbers spinning before his eyes. Jae-hyun leaned back, thinking that this was his first time doing this. Because usually in moments like this, he personally sees the person who did something wrong. He wondered if Tail had another case of tax evasion even after firing the workers. This meant that there were two options. Either Jae-hyun didn't understand something, or they continued in the same spirit. Min-woo asked the guy why he wasn't eating, to which he replied that he didn't want to. The man happily said that he would get more then, and Jae-hyun asked him to leave him a portion because he still had to fight. The man asked him who he had to fight, to which he honestly replied that it was the Tail Enterprise. Min-woo asked him why he suddenly started. When Jae-hyun approached Myung-jun with this question, Myung-jun asked him if he knew what short-term shareholder bonds meant. He said that it was a kind of advance payment given to shareholders, executives, and employees. He asked if there was such a thing. The guy replied that there is. He said that the Tail Enterprise bond is worth more than 1 billion won. He thinks that you need to do your own careful calculation. Meng-jong agreed, saying that they might find information about retirement benefits there. Next, advance payment. Although the company used it, there is no information about it. The man told the boy to check this out and remember one thing. The people are not their enemy. He must avoid self-interest and act in accordance with laws and principles. After returning from his boss's office, Jae-hyun called Tail's business management department. When asked what the issue was, the guy said he needed information about bonuses and board approval. Tail's worker was embarrassed. The guy asked if they could give it to him in 5 minutes. The worker replied that he did not have permission to do this, and he asked if he could connect him to the director, to which the guy agreed. The guy was telling himself that he didn't need to think about quitting, but then a voice came over the phone. The man introduced himself by saying that his name was Park In-chul and that he was the CEO. After getting over his emotions, Jae-hyun said hello and said that he would like to ask the board of directors for permission for the awards. And in the guy's head, the man's voice was heard asking him if he had said it clearly. In-chul asked him who he was, so the guy said his name and position. The man leaned back in his chair and said with a grin that he remembered him. He mockingly said that he was able to make a career, but Jae-hyun interrupted him. He, under Min-woo's surprised look, told him that he couldn't have private conversations because he was at work now. He asked again if they could provide him with the information by fax. He told him that he was giving him 10 minutes. The man did not answer but asked him why he needed it. Jae-hyun didn't answer the question but only said that he was giving them 5 minutes. An irritated In-chul asked him if he was going too far. Jae-hyun, who was also getting irritated, asked how many more times he needed to repeat it. And he again demanded that you provide him with the information in 5 minutes. Min-woo asked the guy what was going on. When Jae-hyun put the phone away to hear him, the man asked if he had to put so much pressure on him. Jae-hyun didn't answer, but just stared at his watch and watched as 5 minutes passed. When he called again, he said that 5 minutes had already passed and there was still no data. In-chul asked him irritably through gritted teeth whether he had really drunk so much brave water. The guy told him that he was just doing his job, there was no need to be rude to him. They didn't send him the information by fax, so that's the end. Hearing this, the man asked again, bewildered. The guy said that from today onwards a tax audit notice would be issued and there would be no need to send a fax anymore. Before hanging up, he said that he would now bring everything himself. Min-woo put coffee on the guy's table and told him that he had never seen anyone talk on the phone like that. He asked him if he could dig up anything on them. Taking the glass in his hands, Jae-hyun replied that there was a chance. Smiling, he said that, more precisely, he was 100% sure. Meanwhile, within a few days, a notice of inspection was received at the Tail Enterprise. In-chul said that they recently went through a tax audit, so he doesn't understand what's going on. In-chul's boss asked him what the real issue was. He told him to tell it like it was, and the man muttered that this taxman of theirs had worked with them before. The boss stood up and swung the folder at the man, shouting that he knew this guy would be a problem. He asked him what he and the chief secretary were thinking. Lee Bong-un quickly calmed the manager down, saying that they wouldn't solve the problem like that. They needed to calm down. Sitting back in his chair, the manager said that the investigation department specializes in complex matters. Kim Myung-jun, the head of the investigation department, is especially picky now. When someone asked why the investigators showed up at all, he was told that it was all because of that traitor. The irritated manager asked if he really wanted revenge because he was fired. Bonhan noted with a smile that thanks to Director Spider, they were in trouble again. He told the manager that things weren't so bad. They would force him to take their side by any means necessary. In-chul quickly intervened in the conversation, saying that they could leave it to him. He would negotiate. The manager simply told the man not to dare let him down. The next day, Jae-hyun stood at the subway doors in the morning. Suddenly, he heard someone driving him call out to him and ask him if he was Shin Jae-hyun. A woman approached the guy. She said with a smile that it was definitely him and said hello. Jae-hyun paused for a moment and then recognized the woman as his former colleague Kim Joo-hee. Joo-hee said that she never thought they would be able to meet here. They sat down together on the subway, and the woman asked the guy how he was doing, to which he replied that everything was fine and asked her the same thing. Joo-hee said it was the same. She asked him if he had found a job since he was heading there later. Jae-hyun nodded. The woman said that it was good because she thought it would be hard for him to find a job after he left. She whispered, asking if it was hard to find a job when you give someone all the information about your company. Jae-hyun asked her what she meant. Joo-hee said that Director Park told them that he passed all their data to a competitor. Jae-hyun said he would never do something like that. He couldn't understand why he said that. The woman said she didn't think it was like that. She said that an innocent person like him could do that to me. The guy's head was filled with the words of his former colleague about how people thought he had done something bad. She said that no one tells the truth about him. Now he bore the mark of a traitor. Jae-hyun, together with Min-woo, proudly walked into the back of Tail's business, and everyone immediately recognized the guy as the very traitor. Min-woo awkwardly scratched his face and said that the atmosphere here was just terrible. He asked the guy why they were looking at them so strangely. From all sides, people called him a traitor and an ungrateful idiot. But Jae-hyun simply told his colleague that there was no need to worry about it. As they walked past the whispering crowd to the turnstiles, the guy said they needed to focus on work. Joo-hee asked the guy why he was here as she didn't expect him to come after her. But before the guy could answer, Bonhan suddenly jumped out and laughed, saying that they had recently seen each other at a diner. The out-of-breath man introduced himself and said he was a tax accountant. He led Jae-hyun and Minwoo to the office where he started to explain that in paragraph 18, it was about bonuses. If you invest money, then 10% of the profit is paid as a contribution. He asked the inspectors if everything was correct here. Minwoo asked him if he had brought a copy of the register and the minutes of the general meeting of shareholders. Bonghan replied that he brought everything, and although it took a little time to prepare, they were all clear. Jae-hyun, who was looking at the documents, noticed that they were indeed done in a hurry. The accountant said the company had spent some private money, but they had already paid the appropriate tax on it. And he told them that the manager wanted to meet with them. Jae-hyun immediately thought that they wanted to give a bribe. Minwoo asked why they needed to see him since they were busy people and turned to Jae-hyun to agree with him. However, the guy replied that they would be happy to meet him. Manager Ham did not argue, and Bonhan stood up to see the inspectors off. They entered the office and In-chul immediately greeted the guy, saying that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. He told the guy that he should greet the manager, and Bonhan quietly said that he would bring everyone coffee. The manager waved his hand, saying that there was no need for these formalities, since they were a family. In-chul agreed with everything with an ingratiating smile, and the man told him to get down to business. Director Pak waved his hand at the suitcase full of money, saying that the managers had not paid everything properly back then, and even though it was late, they wanted to pay now. He said that either they could get money for him being back at work. The manager said with a smile that in any case he asked to accept his sincere gift. But then Jae-hyun took out a pen with a bright red light on it, and the manager asked what it was. Jae-hyun calmly replied that he had been recording their conversation the entire time. The faces of everyone present reflected different emotions: irritation, fear, and surprise. Jae-hyun said that they had already forgotten that they had fired him, so now he would show them what a real snitch is. In-chul stood up from his chair and asked again in fear. The guy said again that he was writing everything down. Director Pak's face twisted into a grimace of fear and irritation, and he asked the boy if he realized how rude this was. The manager continued by saying that it was very rude, and he asked him if they were at fault in any way. Jae-hyun replied that it was up to them to decide whether they were guilty or not, and he would simply go through the list of crimes they had committed. Minwoo whispered to him whether he was really recording, to which he received an affirmative answer. The veins on the manager's neck began to bulge in irritation, and he asked In-chul if he would continue to just watch this. Hearing this, the man walked towards the guy, threateningly saying that he needed to remind him of something. Coming closer, he grabbed the guy by the collar of his jacket. Shouting, he asked him how he dared to attack them. Did he really think that he could do anything since he was a civil servant? Jae-hyun told him to show some respect. He asked him why he was poking him. Loudly, In-chul swung his fist to hit the boy. But before he could do anything, Minwoo appeared between them and shouted at him to stop. Taking out his phone, he told him not to do anything stupid, because he was on a video call with an employee of his department. He said that now everyone saw how he grabbed his colleague by the collar, and now he is being rude. Pushing the man's hand away, Jae-hyun told him to try to behave normally, otherwise he would make the situation worse. He said that now they would do everything like gentlemen. As if entering a new battle, Jae-hyun adjusted his tie. The manager and director appeared before him like demons, and he asked them if they knew that a revolution was necessary when paying bonuses to executives. Bonhan burst into the office asking the chairman what all the shouting was about. Jae-hyun told him not to leave because he should be here too. He said that Taeil's enterprise has a lot of profit. Chairman Kim has made a huge profit from the deal with China, and Chairman Ma made financial cuts, and Director Choi opened a new business in Busan. The manager said that he had already paid for it. Bonhan asked the guy if he didn't see that there were no problems with the board of directors' decision. He said that he had paid everything. Jae-hyun asked him if he meant that fresh resolution where the ink hadn't even had time to dry. He said that they didn't need that. The guy said he found the tax adjustment certificate himself and saw that the board of directors had not made any decision regarding bonuses from the very beginning. The manager hissed, asking Bonhan how this happened. The man muttered in response that he had probably forgotten about it. Continuing, Jae-hyun said that if the bonus had been paid before the resolution was written, it would have been an excessive expense related to the business's operations, and it would have been subject to corporate tax. He pulled out his income statement, which showed bar and hotel room fees, including Social Security. Frowning, he asked what it was. Laughing awkwardly, Bonhan told him that he would tell him about it later. But the guy just continued, noting that they even did massages worth 10 million won here. But Jae-hyun didn't stop there. He started working on the balance sheet. But then Bonhan told the inspector that he had already gone too far. He exclaimed that he was still his senior. He said that he knew that it had only been a short time since he had found a new job. The man said he was worried about him because he had gone too far. Jaehyun only responded to this by saying that he was glad that he knew who came where and when, but he didn't know anything about him. As if pouncing on the boy, Bonhan screamed, asking about things he didn't know. He shouted, asking the guy what the point of the law was. Didn't he know how the industry worked? The guy replied that he knew everything perfectly well and continued again. Attacking again, the guy asked him if he had paid himself severance pay in advance. Bonhan, without denying it, replied that he would have received this money in any case. The guy told him that it was illegal. And so, word by word, Jaehyun continued to tear the managers to pieces. Meanwhile, this entire conversation was still being shown via video call. Ji-hoon, who was sitting behind the bell and watching everything, heard his name being called. His colleague approached him and, hitting him on the head, asked why he wasn't answering. When the guy turned around, the man asked him why he wasn't working, to which he replied that he was watching the new guy and Hwang Minwoo do taxation. Upon hearing this, everyone else in the office immediately ran up to the guy to see it too. They noted that the guy was too meticulous for his first investigation. Even in such a situation, he is not afraid and says what he must. Bonhan appeared on the screen, his face showing concern. One of the colleagues noticed that this was the same man who interrupted their lunch last time. Noticing Bonhan's threat, they all shouted for the newcomer to tear them all apart. It was already evening. Jaehyun and Minwoo left tail. In-chul stood with his forehead on the floor when the manager asked him how many years he had been eating sashimi, to which he replied that it had been 17 years. The man said that in 17 years, everything can change. But only one thing remains the same. He asked him if he knew what it was, and In-chul began to apologize loudly. The manager still said that this was his place in this company. Director Park once again loudly apologized, exclaiming that he would take full responsibility. The irritated manager asked him how he was going to do it. He said that he asked him to do one thing, and he couldn't handle it either. He kicked the man, knocking him to the floor and asking if it was really that hard. In-chul knelt down and bowed, apologizing again. His boss asked him what he could do and told him to get up. When the man didn't get up, the other one kicked him again. Bonhan intervened in the conversation, telling the president to wait, as he had an idea. Now the man's anger turned to the accountant, asking him if he understood that he only had one chance. Bonhan replied that he understood everything and would do everything if he allowed him, and he had helped the former district attorney before. He said that he could discuss everything with him. He would say that they had an illegal inspection. In-chul was once again standing with his forehead on the floor. The manager asked the accountant if he was really going to lie, to which he replied that there was no other choice because these guys had gone too far, and besides, they couldn't be paid. The manager squeezed the other man's shoulder hard. Putting his arm around his shoulders, he said in a threatening tone that this was his last chance. He told him that this time everything should be without mistakes. In the evening, Jaehyun watched a movie at his home. Hearing the ringing, he picked up the phone and noticed that Director Lee was calling him. The guy wondered why he was suddenly calling. When he picked up the phone, he heard Song-yun telling him that he didn't think he could go this far. Jaehyun responded by saying that he simply caught the man he was supposed to catch. The man laughed and said that he called to give him a compliment, and he hoped he would continue like that. He told the guy that everyone has to deal with their ex. The guy asked again, and the man said that he had very high expectations. Jaehyun thought that, in order to deal with his former boss, he needed to have a lot of influence, but he had only just started working there recently, so he couldn't eliminate such influential people. But finally, he answered Song-yun affirmatively, and Song-yun asked him if it was a problem. The guy replied that it was no problem at all, and Sung-kyun said that he was looking forward to meeting him at Samsung soon. He said that the power they gave him was much greater than he thought, so there was no need to lose courage. Jaehyun said that he won't care about those who evade taxes. The next day, Jaehyun came to the office as usual, where he was doing paperwork. He asked Min-woo how good the Samsung office was. The man replied that at times like these he realized that he was still a first year, and said that this office was in the top 3 among the tax services in Korea. It also includes Socho and Yeoksum, as well as Gangnam and Banpo. He told him that he would not be able to get there so easily. The size of the taxpayer's income was also staggeringly large. Suddenly, the worker exclaimed, interrupting the conversation, that the prosecutor's office had come to see them. Another colleague asked why the prosecutor's office was here. Min-woo jumped to his feet and asked Jaehyun if it was because of yesterday. Mengjeong told the guy that it wasn't like that, so he didn't have to worry. He said that he didn't do anything. 2 men entered. One of them showed his badge and said that he was from the Western District Prosecutor's Office, Section 3, Detective Ha Song-pil, and with him was Detective Min Jung-hyuk.